The Skateboarding Hall of Fame is a nonprofit organization that was developed to honor the legends and pioneers of skateboarding that really stuck it out throughout the hardest times of skate spots and skate equipment to make it to where skating's still around today. We're here to pay respect and honor them and just show that there is a history to skateboarding and it does matter. And California, especially growing up here, we were skateboarders, and that's something we just did. It was part of the fabric of our life. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't have a Hall of Fame where these people get to be celebrated and shared and talked about. By having a skateboarding museum, we're going to help the future of skateboarding because we're going to show people how fun it is and realize it's not impossible. It just takes a little practice and a little help. This is a place dedicated to skateboarding. My name is Todd Huber. I'm the president and founder of the International Skateboarding Hall of Fame. We're a nonprofit organization located at the beautiful Simi Valley Town Center in Simi Valley, California. We're standing in front of our brand new museum, which just opened on December 15th. This is how skateboarding started. A pair of roller skates chopped up into two pieces and usually nailed or screwed to a piece of wood. This wall right here, to the best of my knowledge, the largest collection on earth of folk art skateboards. And what I mean by folk art is every one of these was made by hand by somebody. Because you may or may not know, when skateboarding started, you couldn't go buy a skateboard. Even before the folk art boards, where they were literally nailed to wood, they were scooters. And kids made the scooters, and eventually they realized it wasn't quite as challenging when you had handlebars. So once the handlebars came off, that's when it became a skateboard. And then in the 60s, people started calling it sidewalk surfing. I just see one here, it's called the surfing scooter, or a surf skater, or the road surfer, a sidewalk surfer. A lot of the first ones in this section here, which is all boards from the 1960s, were called sidewalk surfers. But in the early 70s, like 1973, Frank Nasworthy, they called him Captain Cadillac, because he invented the Cadillac wheel, which is made out of urethane. And that's what all these boards are. A lot of the boards used to be flat, like this one, but at some point they added a kicktail, and that made a huge difference in riding it. And the other thing that was invented or was common in the 70s and became common was grip tape. So those really are the main things in the evolution of skateboards that mattered. And then people started experimenting with shapes and sizes. And so a lot of the boards of the early 70s were very skinny, not very practical, and then as the evolution changed, by boards becoming wider. And you'll notice they started to get wider here, the trucks became wider, the wheels started to get bigger and more skatable, and people were really starting to figure out what was a good board. The pig boards, for me, are the best boards to collect because they're the hardest ones to find. And if you look up there, there's one, for example, called the Dogtown Bigfoot. It's got the bird on it. That was, at the time when that came out, it was 12 inches wide, which is ridiculous, considering most of the Logan Erskies were like 6, 7, 8 inches wide. So that was a game changer, but it was too wide, and it came back down to 10 inches. This wall kind of ends with the pig boards of the early 80s, and then boom, this wall's all the 80s. Some of the things that were funny in the 80s were the colors, lots of neon colors and bright colors, but also all the accessories that came along, because people were still trying to figure out what's the best setup for a skateboard. But back in the day, you'd slam this into the curb and you wouldn't hook up, as opposed to all these other trucks, this would get hung up on the edge of the curb. So the lapper was something that was funny. They were either used for grabbing, like for air, if you want to catch air, nice something to grab. But for us, we weren't really that good to air. We just used them to keep the board nice, to keep the graphics nice. And same with these protectors. A lot of them had nose guards, like a rubber bumper to protect the nose, or skid plates. And they were designed to keep the board nice. And the wall kind of ends here at the 80s, because at the end of the 80s or the early 90s, the boards look a lot like they do now. One thing that we wanted to have in our museum was skateboarding. So rather than have this giant skate park with a little museum, we went for the giant museum with the little skate park, and we started with this mini ramp. So there's one family, the Midler family. One of the sons, Alex Midler, is a pro skater, and he came up through our lesson program. His family donated the funds to build this mini ramp. Then on this side, we have a library. And all our VHS tapes we put out, and I'm not worried about them being stolen because most of these kids don't even know what a VHS tape is. And it was really just something where we had them in boxes. And why not have a library where you can come study about skateboarding as well? Not only learn on the ramp, but here in the library where we have magazines, books, and part of the library is called the Lookback Library. We all take our extras and share them with new libraries, and they do the same. And that's how we've been able to get every mag. You share your extras, I'll share my extras, and we can fill in all the holes. And eventually, we'll all have complete libraries. We have all the action nows and skateboarders up here. This whole row's Thrasher and Trans World. This one's called King Shit. Here's a mag I didn't even know existed. And it's called, literally called King Shit. And it's a cool mag, but I don't know about it. And there's a lot that even me, the guy who started the museum, can learn. This wall here inside the library is this Powell Peralta collage. And what it is, it's 40 years of Powell Peralta. Powell Peralta are two people. Stacy Peralta, who was you know, a guy that I looked up to as a kid. He was one of the upper level pros. So originally it was just Powell, but then at some point him and Stacy got together and it became Powell Peralta. And I think the Peralta part of it, so George Powell's Powell, but the Peralta part was about the riders and finding the dudes. And you know, he was like a talent scout for skateboarding, and that's where Tony Hawk and Steve Caballero and Tommy Guerrero, these guys, that's how they became, you know, at the forefront of the early 80s skateboarding movement, because a guy like Stacy Peralta was, one, able to spot the talent, and two, be able to really feed the talent, because he owned part of Powell Peralta that was on the cutting edge of the gear. So these guys could tell him, hey, the board needs to be wider, it needs more concave, the wheels are too slow, whatever. And so not only could he find the best skaters, he could get them the best gear, which was just like a winning combo. And Powell Peralta goes down in history as like one of the, if not the most iconic, biggest brands of all time. But when you come here, I think you're gonna realize, okay, I get it now. This is what these people, because the Hall of Fame is about the people, this is a space that really these people deserve to have to celebrate what they've done to make it so we can still be skateboarders today. And so that's what's gonna happen when you come here. You're gonna realize this is a place dedicated to skateboarding.